Welcome back, everyone. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I was raised in a family with 4 moms and 35 kids. We were members of the LDS Church, which is a polygamous group run by their prophet Warren Jeffs, who is now serving a life sentence in prison.
I was raised mainstream LDS in Utah. Sam and I have been married for 10 years and have 2 awesome kiddos.
Yes, we do. Today we are back discussing Shiny Happy People. They came out with another season, which we were kind of surprised, honestly, to see.
Yeah, it's been 2 years. It was 2023 when the first one came out. And it was all about the IBLP group, the Duggar family group. And I expected season 2. I thought, it's going to be more about the IBLP. Yeah. But it seems like they're going a whole other direction, talking about teenagers. They called it the Teenage Holy War.
And Teen Mania.
Teen Mania. Yeah, exactly. And so even in this first episode, it's not one specific religion, but more following this one guy who came up with this youth Christian movement and stuff about his youth camps and groups.
I must say, he is a heck of a salesman.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
And that's something that we'll get into here, but it's that he was able to convince so many young people, and that was his whole purpose, to, in his words, fight for Christ and, give up your own life, basically, to go and fight to save the world.
Yes. I think, man, as I was watching this and hearing youth group, I grew up in the mainstream, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or the Mormon Church, and we had a lot of youth conferences, and primarily, I know now it's called FSY, for the strength of youth. But when I was growing up, it was called EFY, especially for youth. And that was large youth group camps in the summer. You would go for just a week and you would go to these different college campuses and you got to stay in college dorms and you ate at the college cafeteria. So you felt so cool. Anyway, as we get into this, as we started watching it, I was like, I'm very curious if this is going to be similar to an EFY experience. And we've only watched the first episode so far, and I'll share the similarities between the youth camps I went to and these ones, but it looks like later it gets more intense and militant in a lot of different ways. So I'm very curious to continue to see how they kind of line up and where they might be similar and where they might be different.
Yeah, it turns from mainstream Christianity into FLDS vibes.
Yeah, that's what it looks like in the commercials.
Even end up in Texas again, just like every other, for some reason, it seems so popular to go to Texas if you want to hide and have some kind of ranch or compound of some kind.
Yeah, what's up with that, Texas? You guys need to fix your vibe.
It's all the wide open spaces. There's so much.
There's so many places to hide.
Texas. Yeah.
They hide in plain sight, right? They're out there in the middle, and I like how they always describe it too as middle of nowhere, Texas, right? But this documentary is showing a lot of different people who are all alumni of this, and they said that there's 3 main aspects to Ron Luce's scheme. I don't know if there's even a better term for it than that. It's also interesting because he doesn't claim to be a prophet or a leader in the same way that we see in a lot of the other groups that we talk about, right? I'm sure there's going to be money involved later, and they talked about raising money, but it seems like, from what we're understanding, that he really believed that spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ all over the earth was going to usher in the second coming. And so at least in this first episode, they kind of talk about his motives being primarily just him being super, super evangelical Christian and wanting to spread Jesus everywhere. And the best way to do that is to get youth involved to be able to go and spread that as well. So far, I'm not seeing any ill intentions, even though he's a little eccentric.
Right. And the easiest way to convince something or to convince someone of something is to claim that you know how they feel. You have been in their shoes. And he harps on that a lot, that he had a very rough childhood. And everyone in their teenage years goes through some difficult things. I don't know of one teenager that hasn't gone through something difficult. And so he's saying, hey, I've gone through all of these difficult things. I know how you feel. Come and be healed by Jesus, how I was healed. Yeah. And so he's using his story to convince so many other people to follow and do what he wants them to do.
Yeah. And he talks about the fact that at first he was just talking to youth groups. And then he ended up building these 3 different groups, right? One was Acquire the Fire. And the second was mission trips, or what's called global expeditions. And then it goes into Honor Academy. And this first episode is talking about the Acquire the Fire, where it's these big groups of youth and it's like rock concerts. And they kind of talked about, like, leading into this in the 90s, which was my time, about just the overall way that Christians perceived and viewed the world. And I would say everything they were saying was completely accurate to the way I grew up, right? Like the pop culture, pop music, MTV is like the enemy. It's worldliness. It's showing, a lot of sexual stuff and a lot of things that we were told our whole goal, at least as a young Mormon kid and teenager, was to not be like the world. And you want to stand out. You want people to know that you're LDS and that they can tell just by looking at you that you're Mormon. I'm going to use Mormon a lot because in the 90s, we were told that we were supposed to be proud to be a Mormon. So we didn't say that we were LDS, we were Mormon. And it was like a huge thing that you don't want to look like those pop stars. You don't want to be dressed immodestly. You want to look different. You want to look like a follower of Jesus Christ. And so that was a huge thing. So when they talked about, you're looking at MTV as the devil and the 90s pop culture and all the suggestive material, and you're wanting the opposite of that, that was totally what was taught in the mainstream LDS church, which obviously is more mainstream than what the FLDS ever was.
Oh, yes, for sure. And and there was just, during so many, I guess, years throughout the 90s, we were always taught that, the world's getting worse. The world's getting worse.
Yes.
I mean, people still say that today. Everybody likes to talk about how the world's getting worse. But with all of these new things coming out and technology becoming a big thing in the 90s, that's really where people were able to see, so-and-so's doing this, so-and-so looks like this, they act like this, and they're doing all of these things, and it's becoming more public because of the internet and the ease of access of TV and everything else that was going on. I feel like that's why everyone felt like the world was just crashing down and burning, and that we have to do something to fix this. We have to stand. We cannot allow this to happen to our country.
Yes, it's so funny that you mentioned technology, because my mom cried when my dad allowed the internet into our home, because that was like the gateway to evil, because it's only used for pornography and evil, wicked things. And so why would you allow wickedness and evil into our home? And so, I mean, there's been other times since, like I remember the first fight I ever had with my mom was when I was 17 trying to get Facebook, because she was like, that's evil. Like, I remember her crying about that because she was like, it's just going to be evil and there's perverts on there and all these things. And so, yeah, it was definitely a time of change. And I think that it's still the case now, too, where this idea of the world's changing in this wicked way and Christianity is under attack. And I think these are evangelicals, and they're feeling the same way. And Mormons, we felt the same way as well, that our beliefs were always under attack. Granted, Mormon history is literally being driven out of places because there were like shoot to kill orders in Illinois and things. So there was a lot in Mormon history to already make us feel persecuted. And then being odd on top of that, just as a general and as a religion, we weren't accepted by mainstream Christianity either. So there was definitely this feeling that like it was our job to be different, and the rest and be proud to be different, right? We're supposed to be a peculiar people. I was told that like my whole life. We were supposed to not fit in with everyone else, and we took a lot of pride in doing that. And these youth camps, the EFY for me was like a chance to be able to come together with a whole bunch of other kids that were the exact same, thought the same, dressed the same, acted the same, all for this purpose of like gaining your testimony, right? And so when I saw the Acquire the Fire, now EFY did not have the cool concerts that they did. I will say that.
Or the flaming fire.
No, we didn't have any of that stuff. But we did get to have dances and get to dance with boys. And they had a 1-to-1 ratio that was literally required at all EFYs. They only had, like, there were certain spots and then it would get filled up. They had to have a 1-to-1 ratio of boy to girl, so that at dances, everybody always had a chance to have a partner. Okay. And they would have boys escort the girls. They had to you had to link up arms. A boy had to ask you to be escorted. So it was also this like big chance to be able to kind of date without dating because you could go to EFY at 14 and you couldn't date till you were 16. So it was like, ooh, I get to go to youth camp and like hang out with boys and go to dances and be linked up to guys.
But what if
at
one of the
14?
boys wanted to dance with more than one girl at one time?
That sounds like something that FLDS would think
Sorry,
of.
too soon?
Not
Too soon?
allowed in the LDS. They were like, each boy gets one girl.
Sorry,
There-
I had to.
There was one time where the numbers got off one year that I went, because I went for 4 years, which is the maximum you can go. So I went all 4. And there was one time that the numbers were off. And so every guy did have a girl on each arm.
Knew it.
And all the girls,
I
we
knew
were
it'd be
so
snuck
mad.
in there at some point.
We were so mad. We were like, what the heck? We're here to be able to have like our one-on-one ratio.
Boy.
But anyway, the Acquire the Fire had much cooler pyrotechnics than we did. But there were a couple things that I was like, that reminded me a lot of it. One thing was them talking about the fact that the music was super powerful, because EFY, we did a lot of music. There was choirs, again, not the cool like rock band music, but there was a lot of spiritual music. And they said like you'd get goosebumps. This is at the Acquire the Fire, that you get goosebumps and think that's the Holy Spirit, and people would be crying together and they would be just like sobbing, and there were so many tears at EFY. Oh my gosh, especially when we would all sing together. We would sing the As Sisters in Zion and the Army of Helaman song. And those of you who know, and if not, I don't know if you want to look that up. But there's one, it's the EFY medley is what it's called. And you would sing that together, and you would always sing it before you'd leave, and you would just be hugging and crying and getting the goosebumps and feeling the Spirit. And that was very similar to what they were saying they were experiencing.
Yeah, they showed a lot of footage of people just sobbing and praying and just seeming like they were having a very spiritual experience, which they all were feeling something very strong, obviously.
yeah.
I just find it so interesting that I had similar feelings in the FLDS church, and then later on had similar feelings in the mainstream LDS church. And of course, you had a lot of those as well.
Yeah.
And then you see so many people in other religions having these similar experiences. And this is one of the reasons that I have had some concerns about, where are these feelings actually coming from if you can have so many different types of beliefs, because there's people that have nothing to do with Christianity that are having similar experiences, that, sobbing and feeling this Spirit and the goosebumps and things like that. And so that's just one of those things that it's so interesting to me. It seems like when people come together with one purpose in mind, like-minded, and are doing something that they feel is very important, and of course add a little bit of song and singing into that.
Yeah, music is so powerful.
Will always get people choked up. Even today. I mean, well, actually today, when we were watching this show earlier,
Yeah, you're gonna call me out, huh?
Melissa mentioned, she said, oh my gosh, while he was talking and the music was going on, she got goosebumps because it reminded her of those feelings.
Reminded me of EFY.
And this is watching other people with different beliefs through a TV screen. And still, that's how powerful those feelings can be.
When the main guy, when Ron Luce, they showed like a lit up cross. Now, granted, I grew up not even believing that the cross should symbolize the atonement. So it's not like the symbol of the cross doesn't have the same feelings for me either. But when he was talking about it and how everyone would go up and share, basically in my mind, like what a testimony would be, the same type of testimony meetings I had in EFY. Yeah, I got goosebumps, and I was like, this is wild. Like, I am watching this knowing that there's going to be future harm in it. I'm watching it knowing that like that symbolism doesn't mean anything to me, but you put good music with it, the soft-spoken words, the way that he presented it, and all of those type of things. And I went straight back to being a teenager, getting the same goosebumps. And especially at EFY, you're told that you're going with the intention of gaining your testimony. So you're told that those goosebumps, the same way they were told at Acquire the Fire, that those goosebumps are building your testimony. It's the Spirit telling you that that is true. And so, yeah, it was interesting. The other thing too, EFY always had CDs of the songs for that year. So Acquire the Fire had like rock bands and rock Christian music, and the LDS church did not have rock bands, but we did have like inspirational music. And beyond just hymns, the EFY CD always had like more modern music, up to maybe pop. It was never heavy rock, but It was like something that was church music and church approved that wasn't regular hymns. Oh my gosh, everybody, when you get home from EFY, I would go like months without listening to anything other than that CD because all I wanted was uplifting music, and I just like devoted my life to the church and to Jesus, and you're coming home. We wouldn't have said it that way, but we would have said like, I've gained my testimony in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I just don't want to listen to worldly music at all. And I would just listen to my EFY CD for months. And then when they were showing like the burning of the CDs, I threw away CDs of worldly music. I remember NSYNC. I loved NSYNC so much.
Was that one you threw away?
Yes, they came out with their second. Okay, but I didn't even throw away the album that had the bad stuff on it. The second album of NSYNC came out, and they used the Lord's name in vain in one of the songs. And
what does that mean in Mormon world?
Yes. So see, I still feel uncomfortable saying it, guys.
Well, you can.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, you can do this.
So they said, "Thank God it's Friday," and you don't say "Thank God" in the LDS Church. You don't. And that would be using the Lord's name in vain. And forgive me for saying that. It still made me feel uncomfortable. But so I heard them say that, and I was like, I can't believe they used the Lord's name in vain. And I was so disappointed. I was so sad. So because they used the Lord's name in vain on the second album, I threw away my favorite album, their first album, and I threw it away because I couldn't support them anymore. Because of that.
Speaking of taking the Lord's name in vain, which is using his name, how would they word that? Using his name inappropriately or unnecessarily?
Yeah, or outside of the context of the gospel.
Yeah.
Like if you're not talking about him as a person, you don't use the word God out of the context.
But gosh, the word gosh is highly used in LDS culture. Gosh dang it, gosh darn it.
You have to have your substitute words.
So I just want to point out, when I was in the FLDS church, someone was sharing a story and used the words that someone outside of the FLDS church had said, and they said, "Oh my gosh," and it was like, just hearing the word "gosh" was like, may as well have said the F word. It was like that shocking to hear someone within the FLDS church say the word "gosh."
Really?
That just wasn't allowed either. So just to point out, we had one up on you there. So
if
even gosh was taken out.
Okay, leave in the comments. Now I have to know. Okay, especially you ex-evangelicals or people who were raised evangelical, even if you are now. What are your words that were the substitute words that other people use that were still considered bad? We weren't allowed to say suck.
Well, that was a family thing, though, wasn't it? Or was that a church thing?
It was a family thing, but there were a lot of Mormon families around that also felt the same way. So maybe more cultural than like not over the pulpit. None of these things are, not taking the Lord's name was over the pulpit. Which substitute words were okay and what wasn't over the pulpit. They were all kind of cultural. But let us know, what substitute words did you still like not allowed to say?
Yeah.
Because it was too much.
Yep.
But anyway, the music stuff was something I was like, oh my gosh, this is screaming EFY. Then they talked about the fact that they went on mission trips and global expeditions. I never went on like a youth trip like that, but the LDS Church has them for sure. You can go on.
Well, there's a 2-year full-time mission.
Well, you have full-time mission
as an extreme version, because even here they were all in the show. They were talking about going on 2 months was like an extended one.
Yeah, like 1 month was normal. But I know that they have trips to go and like help, because you had a brother that went.
Oh yes, just on like a service mission.
They call them service missions, basically. Same type of thing where they'd go and like build wells or build schoolhouses. Another thing that I thought this might maybe come into play in the next episodes after seeing the like coming up is things like the trek. So you could go, and I always wanted to do the trek, and I never did. But where you get to like act like a pioneer and you push hand cards and
endure some hardships
like the pioneers to appreciate it. So we'll see how similar that is with what's coming up.
Based on what we saw, the little glimpse, I have a feeling there will be some extreme differences, but also I get the idea that, hey, that suffer a little bit for the gospel or for Jesus. But in my mind, the treks that the church put on were less about suffering and more about just experiencing, maybe having a cool experience.
you
But
never
I never
went on
did
one
it.
either.
It's only what people have been telling me.
I need to talk to someone, because
So,
I've heard some
yes.
kids say that it was like brutal and was awful, and they like were starving and they never got enough food.
Wow, there you go.
And then I've heard other people say it was like so amazing and the most spiritual experience. And those two things might have been in the same experience. They might have had the most spiritual experience while they were starving because they felt closer to the pioneers. So there's definitely a lot
That's
of like youth experiences within the Mormon church, the mainstream Mormon church, as well, to where I'm like, okay, it wasn't just EFY either. There's a lot of different experiences that you could have and pay for and go on. And so, which is kind of like how this is looking as well.
Key word here being paying for as well. That's something that Ron would require, that people that went on these 2-month or 1-month missions and went on these different things, they were paying their way in. And that was actually one of the ways he was making money.
Yeah.
And not to be negative towards the mainstream LDS church, but you pay your way to go and have these experiences as well.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yep. The other thing that they talked about was when people were going on these service missions, it was because they felt like everybody was going to hell and that they needed to save the world, right? The idea that you need to go and that every single nation on this earth needs to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ to be saved. And obviously that is a huge tenet of the Mormon church. Sam served a full 2-year LDS mission. And just like these Christian groups, the mainstream church believes that every nation needs to hear, and that is a part of being able to usher in the second coming of Jesus Christ, is that every nation and every person needs to have an opportunity to hear the gospel.
And man, doing these things, just like they shared here, when you feel like you're a part of something so much bigger than life, so much bigger than yourself, and that you are actually serving God and doing what He wants you to do, I mean, it is a powerful motivator.
Yeah.
And just the feelings that you have. I mean, man, I don't remember one time stepping out of line for 2 years.
Yeah.
That is how convinced I was that everything I was doing was for God and that I needed to do it perfectly. And I just tried. I mean, a lot of great experiences, I must say. I mean, it was hard. It was hard. It was really hard, I will admit. But a lot of good experiences as well that I had. And some of my favorite experiences were actually just trying to be Christ-like was my idea, and my thought process as I went throughout it is, hey, what would Jesus do? That was a common thing I would say. And sometimes I would have companions or other missionaries that were around, and they would say, what should we do here? And I would always say that, well, what would Jesus do?
No.
And so there were moments that we were in a downpour rainstorm up on someone's roof trying to help them hammer their roof down so it doesn't leak, and things like that were some of the most memorable experiences I had, just being there trying to help other people and serving them. So I'm not saying it was a bad experience. I just pointing out that there were very hard moments, but also some very good moments.
I feel like too, whenever you're serving, like even EFY, there would always be a big service project. And I feel like whenever you're with a group of people and you are serving and trying to help other people is so powerful. Like how can you not get the goosebumps and feel good about helping other people?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling. And
it's a great feeling.
And I always recommend, hey, if you have an opportunity to put aside what you want and what you feel like is important for you and yourself, and just set that aside for a moment and focus on other people, it has a powerful effect, and it really does help bring some perspective to life.
Yeah. In EFY, a huge thing was also promoting and helping people gain testimonies to want to serve missions, especially the young men, because EFY was from 14 to 18 years old. And so in the same way that they were talking about Acquire the Fire would help kind of promote the global expeditions and these missionary trips, EFY was a big way to try to build up the testimony of young men and young women, and I don't want to say convince, but like help usher them that direction and say, you want to serve a mission, like you feel this way, don't you want to go share it? You want to go share it with the world. You want those people to be saved and to be the happiest. Within Mormonism, we don't really use the word saved as much as I'd say most Christianity does.
Right.
But you would say, like, don't you want them to be happy and be able to have all the blessings of exaltation and enjoy, the gospel of Jesus Christ, which by the gospel of Jesus Christ, we meant the church's idea of the gospel of Jesus Christ and the covenants that you'd make through the temple, and like definitely our covenant path,
Yeah.
because that was the true and only way to be able to return back to God in the celestial kingdom. So it definitely helped
Yeah.
steer a lot of young men and young women towards the course of a mission.
And I don't think convincing would even be a bad word to use, or persuading, because in their mind, you're convincing them to be better people, to help other people. So in the mindset of the church and helping these youth follow a certain path,
Yeah,
right,
that's true.
is definitely the intention, 100% the intention. There is no question to be asked there. But also, I just wanted to point out that something else that is very powerful when you do these things and you're out there focusing on other people is that the mindset is that you're helping, not only helping these people have all of these blessings as we believed, but also you are doing the small thing for God after He did so much for you.
100%.
And you're doing it for your brothers and sisters. You change your mindset of, oh, these are just other people around me that I need to deal with, to, oh my gosh, these are my brothers and sisters in God. And like, they're all just as important as I am, right? So just that mindset change definitely makes it for a really powerful experience.
Yeah. One of the last things I wanted to make sure we mentioned was one guy shared an experience of getting sick while on one of these missions. And he talked about the fact that he got his appendix taken out in like rural India, and it got infected and he had to go back. And when he got back, the leader, Ron Luce, came to his hospital and said that it was a marking of him being a follower of Christ, I think he said, or
and that he was
of a world changer.
Yes.
Right. And that being looked at as like, what a valiant thing for him to have done. And I will say that when people serve missions, and, it's interesting because growing up, I was always told that if you go and you serve a mission, that God's going to protect His missionaries, right?
And bless the family.
Yes.
Of the missionary that's back home, yes.
Yes. So the family gets blessings for you being out. You'll be blessed. You'll be protected. And we would hear like these faith-promoting stories of times when missionaries would be in bad areas or bad situations, and then they would feel the Spirit to get out of it, or would be able to avoid bad things happening to them, or God protecting them. And then I also remember getting to the age where like my friends were going on missions and finding out that bad things did happen to them or were happening to them. And it would always be looked at through this lens of like, look at the things that they went through spreading the gospel. So if something bad did happen, then it was still okay because they were doing it for the gospel of Jesus Christ. They were doing it for Jesus Christ. And so therefore any sacrifice was still worth it. And the older I got, the more I was like, wait a minute, how are like both of those things true? Like, how are you supposed to be protected? But then if you're not, then it's still okay. Or like if a missionary, there's been times where missionaries have been killed on missions. And the first time I heard of that, it like shook my faith a little bit. I was like an older teenager, maybe in my early 20s. And I was like, wait a minute, like God's missionaries aren't supposed to be allowed to be killed on their mission.
But then it turns to this person was a valiant servant of God, and He just needed him back home to fight on the other side and to bring the gospel to those waiting in the spirit world. There was always a way to make it seem okay.
Did you ever see that on your mission? Like
no one ever
happening?
Died.
Or like gotten super sick and had to go home?
Oh yes, well a lot. There were some that did have to go home because of illnesses or something like that. I got super sick on my mission as well, but not to the point that I had to go home.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, there were things like that, but we always looked at it as a faith-promoting opportunity, to prove. I mean, look at Job from the Bible. Look at Job's story, right?
It's true.
He suffered more than we can comprehend, and it was his chance to prove that he will continue to serve God, even through something so awful that he wished he had just died because it was that bad. And that's something that my father in the FLDS church will say is, well, I haven't suffered as much as Job. And he has gone through, I can't get into all of it right now because my father's been through a lot with
the FLDS
family being torn apart and things like that. And so for him to say, hey, You know, I mean, he's very religious. He loves the Bible, and he looks at Job's story and says, I'm good. I can do this.
Yeah. So it was just interesting to see some of those comparisons. Again, they're doing missions for a month, not for 2 years. But the idea of let's strengthen the youth, that the youth are one of the most important assets you have to fulfill this grand destiny. I was taught and told all the time that we were like the most important generation. And I'm afraid that now they're telling the new youth that. And I feel a little sad about that. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm the chosen generation. That's what they say. I'm the chosen generation to, bring in the second coming of Jesus Christ. And
you were chosen to bring in the generation that is now. So,
going to bring in, to bring in the next generation. They can bring in the next.
You did your part.
Yeah. But it is definitely an important aspect of if you can build up the testimonies of teenagers, they're going to be more likely to serve missions. I know that we're going to hear about the Honor Academy, which sounds like kind of their mission training for their like young 20s, their young adults is what they said. And so I'm excited to see kind of in that future one, if there's more similarities to what you experienced on a mission being a young adult rather than a teenager. But it's definitely an important aspect in strengthening up of, like I said, if you have this idea of you needing to save the world and the only way to do that is through numbers, right? I don't know. There's definitely a lot of similarities, some big differences. I'm very jealous of their rock music and the pyrotechnics, but I did get to dance with boys and that was pretty cool. And honestly, all of my experiences at EFY were fantastic. I loved every single week, every single one that I went to every single year. So it doesn't make it bad just because there's similarities. And now I can look back and say, those experiences, I had a lot of amazing experiences, and I can also view them through the lens of kind of understanding more of maybe what the church's intentions were with me. But ultimately, I had a good experience, and things were a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, good.
And hopefully, I mean, we're hearing these stories from these people, and even these stories from them, you can still hear where they felt like in that moment they were having a good time and that they were enjoying themselves and that things were good. And it sounds like we're going to hear later some of the horror stories of what happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's a reason that they continued on as long as they did, is they were having those feelings and those good experiences that continue to convince them that it was the truth.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people watching this that will probably say, well, I mean, it was Christianity, right? And they were talking about Bible and they were talking about these things, and then he just took it to an extreme. So, right? So a lot of people go and are believe in the Christian belief and never get to these extremes that we're about to see, right? And so and I assume they were feeling something similar to that, except for, you're right, the big concerts and the big shows that he put on are probably beyond what any other Christian would generally see in their churches.
It just depends on the church, though, because we've had
It's
lots
true.
of people put in the comments that having bands, having rock music, having drums is like common. Leave in the comments. Do you have a rock band?
Maybe it's more common than I thought.
Yeah, I think it just depends on which Christian church, and I am all for it. We have gone to a church since just to go and see their Christmas performance with our family, and I was like, this is so cool.
Surprised I didn't have to pay for it. It was a really cool concert.
Yeah, and I was so excited that there were drums. So I'm a big fan of that. I hope you grew up, whoever you are out there, I hope you got to grow up in a church that had drums, because I just am so jealous and think that was super cool.
Yeah, the organ wasn't enough for you, huh?
Nope. Every once in a while we got a violin.
That's true.
Violin.
That was about as far as it got.
My brother had to get special permission to be able to play the acoustic guitar once, to play a song in Korean when he got back from his Korean mission. And that was but it was special permission. And it was only because that one bishop was cool about it. Because typically guitars are no.
Worldly.
You can get a little cray-cray on those. So can't have any of that. But anyway, stay tuned with us. We're going to do the next 2 episodes over the course of the next couple weeks. And thank you all for being here. And we'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you all so much for hanging out with us again. We look forward to talking with you soon.